Welcome students. In today's video, we will be looking at the Ability Test 2022 past paper. The paper lasts for 1 hour and 15 minutes and you will be given 40 questions to complete. Let's get to the first question. All right, so again, there are 40 questions on the test and you are to read each item carefully, then shade the corresponding letter of the answer you have chosen. All right, so for items 1 to 3, you're going to select the word that best completes each statement. All right, so another thing to note that this video will cover the entire paper in one sitting. So if you consider it a little bit long, then you can always pause the video, take a break, and then come back to view the rest of it at some other time. All right, so question 1. Curry is to goat as jerk is to meat, barbecue, chicken, or seasoning. The correct answer is C, chicken. Since they were specific about the goat being curried, then it would be the chicken, a specific type of meat that you would jerk. All right, question 2. Stadium is to athletes as playground is to. Is it slides, adults, grass, children? The answer is D, children. Okay, athletes, right? Those are the persons who you'd find in a stadium. And then children are the ones who would use the playground. All right, so question 3. Reading is to words as mathematics is to. Is it fingers, numbers, subtraction, total? All right, so we read words. So with mathematics, we work with numbers. So the answer would be B. Let's get to question 4. And I'll try to go as fast as possible, but there are some questions we might need to take a little bit more time. All right, so in items 4 and 5, which word does not belong to the group? So we have gram, liter, meter, pound. Okay, so D would be the odd one out. It does not belong to the group because the others have to do with the metric system. Okay. Question 5. Which word does not belong? Pot, onion, salt, pepper. The answer would be A, pot. All the others are different types of seasoning that we use to cook. All right, so for items 6 and 7, you're going to select the most appropriate words to correctly complete each sentence. Number 6, the library book was blank due, so I was blank to pay a fine upon returning it. The correct answer would be D, the library book was past due, so I was supposed to pay a fine upon returning it. All right, question 7. The team was not prepared to play in rainy blank. This caused them to blank the game. The correct answer, weather, and remember these words, you have to make sure you understand what they mean in order to be able to use them correctly. The answer is C, weather and lose. Let's get to questions 8 and 9. It says each box has words that are alike in some ways. So for question 8, you're going to see which of the following could not be in box 1. So let's look at the words in box 1. Observe, see, notice, view. Which of the following could not be in that box? All right, here are the options. Unaware, detect, recognize, watch. All right, so observe, see, notice, view. All of those would be similar to detect or to recognize or to watch. Unaware would be unlike the other words in the box. All right, so let's look at the second box for question 9. We have the words exit, vacate, desert, abandon. Which of the following could not be in box 2? Depart, quit, accept, leave. Okay, the only one that's unlike the others would be accept. So the correct answer for number 9 is C. Notice the word could not be in the box, so we have to make sure we pay attention to those keywords. Okay, so it says read the passage below carefully, then use it to answer item 10. Shireen lives 12 miles from her school. Her friend Pia lives 4 miles farther from school than Shireen in the same direction. Jaden lives 16 miles further than Pia, but farther than Trent, who lives between Pia and Shireen. Justin lives the farthest of all the students. So, question 10 says, if all the students except Shireen left school on the same bus to get home, who would be the second person to get home? All right, so let's try to represent this with a diagram. So here is the school. And then it says Shireen lives 12 miles from her school. So I'm going to put Shireen here. And then it says her friend Pia lives 4 miles further from school than Shireen. So a little way further, we would find Pia. Okay. And then it says Jaden lives 16 miles further than Pia. So, but farther than Trent. All right, so let's deal with Jaden first. So Jaden lives 16 miles farther from Pia. So I'm going to put Jaden here. And then it says farther than Trent, who lives between Pia and Shireen. So between Pia and Shireen, there's Trent. So Trent is here. Okay. And then it says Justin lives the farthest. So I'm going to put Justin here. Okay. So it says now, if all the students except Shireen left school on the same bus to get home, who would be the second person? So we're not going to have Shireen is not on the bus. So then if all the other students are on the bus, who would be the second person to get home? That would be Pia, because Trent would be first, then Pia. So the correct answer for question 10 would be B, Pia. Sometimes you have to draw these things. Don't assume and try to use your brain only. Get out those pencils and use them to represent the information so you can clearly see the relationship. Okay, so for items 11 to 13, you're going to circle the option that is a necessary component of the word in bold type. All right, so for the computer, we have a camera, printer, keyboard, headphones. What's a necessary component of the keyboard? All right, we don't necessarily need a camera for a computer. We don't necessarily need a printer. We don't even need headphones, but we definitely need a keyboard so we can type what we need to on the information that we want. Okay, so for question 12, kitchen, we have kettle, stove, cupboard, bread. What's a necessary component? It would be a stove. The main purpose of a kitchen is to cook. So you definitely need a stove for it to be considered a kitchen. You know, a stove can be any form of stove, but we definitely would need, we don't need bread for it to be a kitchen or cupboards or a kettle, but for it to serve its main purpose, then it would need a stove. All right, so question 13. What is a necessary component of a beach? All right, is it boat, sand, lifeguard, tourists? Definitely sand. A beach doesn't have to have boats or a lifeguard or tourists, but it definitely needs sand to be, you know, part of the makeup of the beach. It needs sand. All right, so for questions 14 and 15, you're going to select the word that comes next in the sequence. All right, so we have internal, external, instant, delayed, constant, what comes next in the sequence. So based on the pairs of words, it seems as if we're dealing with opposites. So which word there would be the opposite of the word constant? Is it occasional, stable, unmarked, or consonant? The opposite of constant, if you want to put it that way, would be the most likely answer would be occasional. So for 14, the answer is A. Let's get to question 15. Okay, so we have advise, advice, perform, performance, argue, argument, invite. Again, looking at the relationship between the pairs, we are looking at the verb and then the noun. So what would be the noun for the word invite? That would be C, invitation. Looking at the noun form of the word. So let's get to question 16 to 19. We're going to have to read a passage and then use it to answer items 16 to 19. So it says, so do we still need radio? And then they have some of those popular social media apps, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Netflix, WhatsApp, and of course the radio. Let's read. Since as early as 1950, Jamaicans have relied on radio to keep them up to date with what is happening in their communities, the wider island, in the Caribbean, as well as internationally. At one point, radio provided the entertainment, educational programs, news, and talk shows that people listened to. Information presented in the news at that time was almost entirely accurate. In 2022, radio still provides all that it used to. However, social media platforms such as YouTube, WhatsApp, TikTok, Instagram, and streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, and One Spot Media now account for most of the entertainment being consumed by many Jamaicans, especially young people. Also, many people have smartphones equipped with cameras, so when something happens and is captured on video, that story may have already made the rounds by the time the news is read at 5 p.m. Information shared on social media may be more immediate than waiting for the news on the radio. However, one should not be too quick to believe news heard via social media. All right, let's get to the questions. And students, I might not necessarily, as I said, in an effort to be with for good time management, I may perhaps skip through rereading the passage, but you can, while you're doing your exam, make sure you read the passage as many times as you need to get the understanding that you should. So it says, which paragraph or paragraphs best supports the conclusion in the box? Radio may be losing some of the popularity it once had. So quickly, in the first paragraph, it does tell us some of the information there that the radio, what we would have used the radio for, but specifically in paragraph 2, it gives us a comparison between the radio and these new social media platforms from which we now have information. And so the question, radio may be losing some of its popularity. I think that would be the second paragraph that tells us now about the new options that are being presented. So my answer for question 16 would be D. Sorry, B. Correct answer, I did circle it. The answer is B. All right, question 17. Which source is most likely to have error-free news? Is it YouTube, WhatsApp, TikTok, radio? And again, because people are, as it relates to paragraph 2, it says, however, no one in the last sentence, however, no one should be too quick to believe news heard via social media, because again, these sources have not been vetted and it's just based on a person's point of view. But with the radio, they have to be a little bit more careful with what they broadcast. So the radio would be most likely to have error-free news. So the answer for question 17 is D. Question 18. What is being suggested by that story may have already made the rounds? We don't necessarily have to go back to the passage, but again, if you're doing your exam, I would advise you to do so. What is being suggested is that many people may have seen the incident before it was on the news. So when people have their cameras and everybody's recording and it has been shared so many times, by the time news comes on in the afternoon or evening, then many people would have already seen, would have already been shared so many times. Okay, question 19. Which would be the most accurate conclusion to draw after reading the passage? Netflix is the most popular streaming service. Jamaica is the first Caribbean country to have access to radio. Many people buy smartphones because they have high quality cameras. The need to stay informed and be entertained has not changed over time. The correct answer is D. And of course, let me remind you, you would go back to the passage just to make sure that's what your answer should be. All right, let's get to question 20. Read the paragraph carefully, then use it to answer question 20, item 20. David lives in Maypen, Clarendon. He will be 15 years old in April this year. Helping out at home makes him feel good about himself. His mother, Mrs. Robinson, works at a computer store in Kingston. She is one of the cashiers there. Saturday is a very busy day for Mrs. Robinson at work, so she usually gets home very late. David makes dinner for the family on Saturdays. His cooking skills are getting better each week. Question 20. Which least explains why David cooks dinner on Saturdays? Which least explains? Okay. Is it that his mother is a cashier at a computer store, that she works at a computer store in Kingston? His mother gets home very late on Saturdays. Mrs. Robinson is usually very busy on Saturdays. What would least explain? All right, so the one there that does not give us enough information to tell why he would cook is A, right? His mother is a cashier at a computer store. Could have been a computer store right next door. We don't know. But so that information doesn't give us much. When it tells us that the store is in Kingston and we know they live in Clarendon, then the distance there helps us to understand why he would need to cook, right? And of course, the other 2 points, she gets home very late on Saturdays and she's usually very busy on Saturdays. That would explain too, help to explain why David would cook on Saturdays. All right, so question 21, it says, examine the pattern below, use it to answer item 21. All right, so we have, so they're asking which number correctly replaces the asterisk. All right, so we have 6, then 4, then 7, then 5, then 8, then 6, then 2. So you pretty much want to examine the relationship between the numbers. All right, so between 6 and 4, you subtracted 2. Then between 4 and 7, you added 3. Between 7 and 5, you subtracted 2. Then you added 3 to get to 8, subtracted 2 to get to 6. So if we're looking at the pattern, then we will now be adding 3 because we subtract and we add, we subtract 2, add 3, subtract 2. So now we're going to be adding 3. So the 9, which is D, would be the number next in the sequence. So the answer for 21 is D. All right, question 22. Examine the pattern below. Use it to answer item 22. Which shape would come next in the pattern? All right, so we know it's not going to be a circle because we already have 2 circles there. So we would not be having a third. That would not make the pattern. Okay, so after 2 circles, you always have a triangle. But of course, you notice that the triangles are facing different opposite directions. So first, there was a triangle that was slanted to the opposite angle was to the left, then right, then left. So we're going to be looking for a triangle that's slanted to the right. Okay, so the answer would be D. Let's get to question 23. All right, so it says, examine the 3 diagrams below labeled ST and U. A relationship exists between the 3 numbers in diagram S. The same operation used in the relationship between the numbers in diagram S are also used in the relationship between the numbers in diagram T. Use the same operations to complete diagram U and answer item 23. So what's the relationship between the numbers? And they tell you where to start. See, they say you're to start here. Okay, so from 8 to 5, we subtracted 3, and then to get to 15, we would have multiplied by 3. So we subtract 3, and then we multiply by that same number, 3. Let's see if that holds true for the second set. If we start at 12, we subtract 5. That 5 is then used to multiply 7 to give us 35. So let's see what we need for this relationship. So if we're starting at 10, we subtract 4. Sorry, we subtract 4 to get 6. So that means we need to multiply 6 by 4 to get 24. And I see that as an option. So our answer would be B, 24. So the answer for 23 is B. All right, so we have covered more than half of the paper. Let's continue. Question 24. A number is given in the box below. Use it to answer item 24. All right, so the number is 99 in the box. So 24 says a number with the digit 9 is added to the number in the box to make it 1000. What is the place value of the digit 9 in the number that is added? So we can look at this question in different ways, right? So if it says a number is added to the digits, a number with the digit 9 is added to the number in the box to make it 1000. But there's only one number that can be added to 99 to make it 1000. So how do we find that number? We could subtract 99 from 1000, and that definitely will just give us the answer right away. Okay, so let's do that quickly. 109. So the answer would be 901. That's the only number that you can add to 99. So that would be a quick way to find out what the number is without guessing. All right, so when we look at the number, so we would add 901 to 99. So what is the place value of the digit 9 in the number that's added? So this is the ones place, tens place, hundreds place. So the answer would be C. Okay, and of course we know that the 9 couldn't have been in the ones place because that wouldn't have given us 0. But we would need a 0 in the end number here. It would not have been in the tens place because we put it there. It would not give us 1000 either. So we would have to look at the possibilities in that way to eliminate what could not have been. All right, so question 25, examine the number line below. The point on the number line represents 3/4, so use it to answer item 25. Which fraction should be in the box? Okay, so would it be 4/3, 4/4, 1/4, and a half? So here we have 3/4. 3/4 is 3/4, right? So if we're looking at this line, then we could have another dot here. Hold on. Okay, so we could have another dot here. And so in this, right, this dot right here would have represented 1/4, right? Because we know pretty much dividing the line into 4 parts. And this would be a half or 2/4. So for the entire line, the final piece would have been 4, right, out of 4. So the answer is B, 4/4. Let's get to question 26. Mark thought of a number and perform the following. Perform the steps below. Use the steps that Mark performed to answer item 26. So step 1, he multiplied the number he thought of by 2. Step 2, added 10 to the result of step 1. Step 3, divided the result of step 2 by 2. Step 4, subtracted 4 from the result of step 3. After following the steps, Mark ended up with 5. What was the number he thought of? So in order to find out the number that Mark thought of, we would have to do the steps in the reverse order. And that would mean doing the opposite of what was done before. So we started with 5. We ended up with 5. So that's our starting point. Since we don't know what number he thought of, we have to work back 2. that number. So he thought of 5, right? So remember he had subtracted 4, so we have to add back 4, and that gives us 9. Then he had divided, so now we are going to have to multiply by 2. That gives us 18. Then he added 10, so now we have to subtract 10, and that gives us 8. And then he multiplied, so now we have to divide by 2, and that gives us 4. All right, this 2 not written properly. Let me do it again. So divided by 2, that equals 4. So you have to do the opposite. If you're retracing, you have to do the opposite of what was done to get you back to the original number. Let's see if that number works. So you thought of a number, so we now know that the number is 4. I'm assuming the number is 4. So if I multiplied 4 by 2, that gives me 8. If I add 10 to it, that gives me 18. Then if I divide that by 2, that would give me 9. If I subtract 4 from 9, that gives me 5. So you didn't have to go through this step that I did. You could have simply gone through and see if each of these numbers would work. So for example, you could have used the 2 and multiply 2 by 2, that's 4, add 10, that's 14, and see if you would end up with the answer of 5. But again, I chose to do it a different way. And sometimes there are more than one ways to do the questions. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm wrong, you're right, or you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm right, or whatever, but there's sometimes just different ways to answer the questions. All right, so 4 siblings. This is for question 27. 4 siblings, Carl, Bob, Dean, and Mary, are to be arranged in order of the oldest to the youngest. Use the information and the clues given below to answer item 27. So here are the clues, right? Remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to arrange them in the order from the oldest to the youngest. All right, so here are the clues. Carl is neither the youngest nor the oldest. Bob is older than Dean, but younger than Mary. So we know that Carl is neither the youngest nor the oldest. So of the options, if we see Carl in the first position or last position, we know that's not correct. Let's see if there's any that shows Carl. All right, so this one would not be correct because they have Carl here in the first, and he's neither the oldest nor the youngest. All right, so that's the only one that we have eliminated so far. And it says Bob is older than Dean. All right, Bob is older than Dean. All right, so Bob is older than Dean. These two, that's correct. We're doing it a little by little, right? So Bob is older than Dean. All right, again, that one would have been, we already crossed that one out. Bob is older than Dean, so this one would not be correct either because this one having Dean being older. So that is also incorrect. So let's go back to the top two. It's either one of these. So then it says, Bob is older than Dean, but younger than Mary. So Bob needs to be younger than Mary. In this one, it is showing Mary being younger than Bob, so this also would not be correct. So the answer, let us look at the information. Carl is neither the youngest or the oldest, so he's somewhere in the middle. Bob is older than Dean. This shows Bob being older than Dean, but Bob is also younger than Mary, and of course it shows that Bob is younger than Mary, so the answer would be A. That one shows the ages from oldest to youngest. Question 27, the answer was A. All right, let's look at question 28. If a square represents 2 triangles, then 4 triangles is represented by, of course, the answer is D, 2 squares. Let's get to question 29, and you can notice there's a lot of information that you would have to look at sometimes in order to get the correct answer. All right, so Adam and Jody are training for sports day. The table below shows the Number of push-ups Adam and Jody completed. Use the information in the tables to answer item 29. So for Adam, we have days 1 to 5 and the number of push-ups he completed. On day 1, it was 10, day 2, 15, day 3, 25, day 4, 40, day 5, 60. For Jody, they only showed us how much he completed on day 7, which was 100. So it says Adam used a set pattern to complete his push-up each day. If Adam continued this pattern to day 7, which statement below would be true about the number of push-ups Adam completed on day 7? So we have for Adam from days 1 to 5, so we have to know how many push-ups did he complete on day 6, and also how many did he complete on day 7. Okay, so let's look at the pattern to see how much he would complete for days 6 and 7. So from day 1, there was an increase of 5. And then on day 2, there was an increase of 10. Then from day 3 to 4, there was an increase of 15. And then there was an increase from day 4 to 5 of 20. So 5, 10, 15, 20. So pretty much each day is adding an extra 5 to the total. So if on day 5 he completed 60 to continue the pattern, then for day 6, it would have been 25 added. So then it would have been 85. And then if you continue the pattern on day 7, we're gonna now add 30 to 85, and that gives us 115. So on day 7, you would have completed 115. So this means that on day 7 you would have completed 115. So here is the question. The question says, what is true about the number of push-ups Adam completed on day 7? So is it that the number of push-ups Adam completed on day 7 is greater than the number of push-ups Jody completed? Was it as in option B, less than the number of push-ups Jody completed? Or were they the same? Or is it that you cannot determine that from the information? The answer is A. So we have determined that Adam would have completed, if we're following the same pattern, 115 push-ups, while Jody completed 100. So he completed more push-ups than Jody on day 7. All right, let's get to question 30. 4 girls ran different legs on a winning 4x100 meters relay team. The time run by each girl is shown on the table below. Use this information to answer item 30. All right, so we have each girl and the time in seconds. For Julie, 12.41 seconds and 11.32 seconds. Kayla, 12.05 seconds. And Tanisha, 11.17 seconds. Which girl may have contributed most to the success of the team? So remember, with a race, then if you are running, then if you have the lowest time, then you would have been the winner of the race, right? If you have the highest, or you have not the more seconds than the others, and you would have been the loser. So which girl would have contributed most would have been the one that had the lowest time, the fastest time. And so for Tanisha, hers was 11.17. That would have been the lowest, so she would have contributed the most in terms of ensuring that the team had a fast time. So the answer for question 30 would have been A. So guys, remember, the person with the highest number, right, would have been the loser, because in a race you want the lowest score, not the highest. All right. And when I say highest, I mean you don't want your total to be more than the others. All right. So for question 31, the picture below shows different types of dogs. The dogs are arranged in ascending order based on their heights. The difference in height between each dog is about the same. Use this information to answer item 31. All right, so we have 6 dogs. And if dog number 6 is 55 and dog number 1 is 15, what statement about dog number 3 could be true? All right, so we have over here 15. And over here, we have 55. Okay. So how would you get now pretty much what the increments would have been? They said it's about the same, the difference in height, right? The shortest would be 15. The tallest, right, in terms of the height, would have been 55. And there's an even distribution between them. So let's look at the difference in total between the highest and the lowest. So the difference between 55 and 15, 55 minus 15 equals 40. And so we have 1, 2, 3. So pretty much 5, increments between them, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so pretty much looking at 5 different increments there. So if we divide the 40 by 5, then pretty much there would have been a distance of about 8, right? If we're looking at the average, it would have been about 8 centimeters difference between them. So this second would have been about 23, and then this would have been 31, and then 39, and then 47. Okay, and that pretty much would have given us the even distribution between them. All right, so they said now dog number 3 is about, all right, so we have established that they're around the 31. So which number here gets closest to 31, given the average of what the dog could have been, the range between, which the dog would have fallen, and then the closest to that would have been 35. So for question 31, the answer is B. Guys, sometimes you can pause the video and try to figure out what the answer is and see what I did, or what you think you could have done, whether differently or similar to what I've done, to see if you would have been able to find out the answer, just to see what was done. All right, so the diagram below shows the community in which Paul lives. He can use 2 routes, route A or route B, to walk from school to home. That word route, I know for most people, they use the American pronunciation route, the English pronunciation route. All right, I guess at this point, since we have been too Americanized, we get most of our language from them now, it seems, because of the exposure to their culture. All right, so he can use 2 routes, route A or route B, to walk from school to home. He walks along the road to get home. Use this information to answer item 32. All right, let me see if I can make it so we can see all the information on the page at the same time. Okay, so it walks along the road to get home. Use the information to answer item 32. So Paul takes 35 minutes to walk from school to home using route A. If he walks along at the same speed, about how long would it take to walk from school to home using route B? So if route A would be here, okay. So they're telling us that from here to here would be 5. So I'm going to say this would be a 5 again. 5. Here would be 5, 5. And then here is 5 and 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That gives me the 35 on average, pretty much cutting up dividing, the journey into different parts. So if we use root B, then about how long would it take him to get home? Let's look at the options. But if this is 5, as we indicated, all right, this is going to be 5, 5. So for him, it would have been 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I'm going to say for question 32, the answer is 25 minutes. Okay, just a little bit less, 10 minutes less, if we decided to use that route. All right, so let's get back to, let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. And as I always remind the students, you can turn your phone horizontally so you can see the information on a wider screen. All right, so question 33, the diagram below shows two pieces of string labeled 1 and 2. A student found that the length of his desk was 10 times the length of string 1. Use this information to answer item 33. So item 33 says, about how many times longer would the student's desk be than string 2? So for string 1, it was 10 times longer. So if we want to use string 2, right? If we were going to use string 2. So for example, let us imagine that the string 1, the length would have been, let's see, just using an example, 10, right? 10 meters. Let me just say 10 meters. I mean, it wouldn't have been meters because it's a desk and all of that. It would have been less. All right, let me say centimeters then. Okay, so it would have been 10 times. So that would have been 100. Okay, so then the desk would have been 100 centimeters. That would have been the desk. All right, 100 centimeters. And this is string 1. Okay, and so for string 2, since it's a shorter string, that means you would need to do it in much more. All right, so we would still need it to be 100 centimeters because that's what the desk is, right? But by how much now would we need to multiply the string? So if I'm looking at the two strings, I would say that the second one is about half the size of the first. So I would say string 2, I would say it was about 5 centimeters. All right, I would say about 5 centimeters. So by how much would I need to multiply this 5 centimeters, right? Which is pretty much half the length of the first one to get to that same 100 centimeters for the desk. And so 5 times what gives you 100, that would have been 20. So pretty much double, right, what it would have taken. So let's look at the options here. By about how many times longer would the student's desk be than the string? So I would say it would be between 19 and 25 because we don't know the exact measurement, right? I just used something approximate. They didn't measure the string and tell us, but it would be between 19 and 25 times longer, depending on the length of the string. So the answer, C. Okay, so lots of graphs and charts and diagrams and pictures for these questions. All right, so for question 34, all right, less than 10 to go now. The chart below shows the population levels in some major cities around the world from 2015 to 2018. Use it to answer items 34 and 35. All right, so we have the population levels in billions of tons. The chart showing the population levels in major cities around the world. And then we have Linfen, Mumbai, Honolulu, and the Gold Coast. And then, of course, at the bottom, we have the different years. So 34 says, which country showed a decrease in population levels in 2018? So let's look at 2018. Well, of course, in order to see what a decrease would have been, we have to compare it with what it was or where it was in 2017, at least. So at 2017, we can look at the position, right, in terms of the levels. And then, is there any that shows the leaning downwards? And that would have been Mumbai. So for 34, the answer is D. That one had a decline. There was a decrease in the level of pollution. All right, let's get to question 35. Which statement is true? So, looking at different things here, Linfen had the lowest population levels in 2015. Let's go back to Linfen and see. We're going to have to go make some comparisons now. Where's Linfen? No, it had the highest, so that's not true. Mumbai and Linfen had equal levels of pollution in 2017. And we can see here from this point that they were the same. So that would be correct. They both had the same level. All right, so we don't even need to do anything more. We have found our answer. All right, it says for C, Gold Coast produced no population. And of course, none of them had 0. So that was not true. And it says Honolulu's pollution level went up and down each year. So let's look at Honolulu. No, it doesn't. It pretty much had a somewhat steady rise, right? Not too much, but it went up consistently. So the correct answer for 35, like we established before, was B. 5 more questions to go. All right, so it says, use the information below to answer item 36. 40 students were asked about their favorite car color. Red was the most popular car color chosen. Less than a quarter of the students chose blue cars. 2 times as many students chose green as orange. So let's look at the options. All right, so let's see now. Red was the most popular option. So of all of them, we need to have red showing the most. So if there's any with red not being the most, it would be incorrect. So far, this would be incorrect because red was the most popular. In this one, red isn't. So that one is out of the options. Let's look at the other options. It says that less than a quarter of the students chose blue cars. So we know that a quarter of 40, since we got a total of 40 students, would have been, a quarter would have been 10. So less than 10 chose blue, right? Less than a quarter, so it could not have been 10. So this is also incorrect because it has to be less than a quarter. So it can't be a quarter. They didn't say a quarter, so it can't be 10. So those two will be incorrect. Okay, let's do if there's anything else that shows. All right, so 9 is less and 7 is less. So those two are still in the running. All right, so the next one says 2 times as many students chose green as orange. So that means every person that chose, for every 2 people that chose green, 1 chose orange, right? So twice as many students chose green. So green would be twice as much as orange. So which of the options shows green being twice as much? In this one, it's showing orange being twice as much. That's not what we want. So green being twice as much, right? So this one is incorrect. The correct answer for 36 is C. Okay. Sometimes we have to do all of this to get our answer. All right, let's get to question 37. Okay, so the diagram below shows a hospital that is located close to 3 towns, as well as a number of hospital workers living in each town. Use the information shown in the diagram to answer items 37. Okay, so we have some hospital workers in Greentown, then we have some in Cayman Valley, and then we have some in Oaks Walk. All right, so they give us the key that tells us what each symbol represents, the total number that each represents. Okay, so it says, which statement is true about the information given? All right, is it that there are more doctors living closer to the hospital than pharmacies. Doctors living in green. There are more doctors living in Greentown than nurses. There are more pharmacists living in Cayman Valley than doctors. There are more nurses living in Cayman Valley than doctors. So we were going to have to look at the numbers to see for each of them, and then we can be able to better give the answer for this. So for Greentown, let me do it over here. So for Greentown, I'm going to call that GT. So for Greentown, that's the first one. We have each of those represents 10 doctors, so that would be 30 doctors. 30 doctors, and each of those represent 25 nurses, so that would be 50 nurses. Okay, then for CV, that's Cayman Valley, we have 20 pharmacists, right? Because there's just one there. Then we have 20 doctors, and we have 50 nurses. Then in OW, so OW, we just have pharmacists. So we have 40 pharmacists. Okay, so let's see if we can use this information now to answer the question. So which statement is true? All right, so it says there are more doctors living closer to the hospital than pharmacists. So the people who live closest, remember the hospital is here. So if the hospital is here and in Oak Walk we have 40 pharmacists, no doctors, then this could not be true. Then it says there are more doctors living in Greentown than nurses. So in Greentown, we had 30 doctors and 50 nurses. So this is also incorrect. All right, so it says there are more pharmacists living in Cayman Valley than doctors. So in Cayman Valley, you had the same amount of doctors as were pharmacists. So this is also not correct. All right, and the last one, there are more nurses living in Cayman Valley than doctors. So we have 50 nurses. So yes, we do have more nurses than doctors. So for 37, the answer is D. Like I said, guys, if you have to go through all of that to find your answer, then that's what you do. Question 38, 1 out of every 10 students in a school takes lunch to school. If there are 200 students in the school, how many of them do not take lunch? So if lunch equals 1 out of 10, then no lunch would equal what? 9 out of 10. So 9 out of 10 do not take lunch, right? But if there are 200 students, so we need to find 9 out of 10 of 200. All right? So 10 into 10 goes that. 10 into this goes 20. 9 times 20, that's 180. So the answer would be C. 180 students do not take lunch. Carefully read the question. Make sure you are answering what they are asking you. Question 39. For item 39, there's a question followed by 2 statements. You're going to read the statements carefully and then see if they provide enough information to help you answer the question. 39. Mrs. Baker arranged the books on her shelf in order from the least number of pages to the most number of pages. How many pages does the book in the middle have? So you're going to see if you have enough information to be able to answer that question of how many pages does the book in the middle have. The statement 1 says the book in the middle of the shelf has 3 times the number of pages as the book with the least number of pages. And then it says the book with the most number of pages is 704 pages long. No, it didn't tell us that the book at the end, the book with the most pages, was 3.5 times the book in the middle. So using these two statements, we don't know how much pages, how many pages the book with the least number of pages has. So I would say that both statements together are not enough to answer the question. There's still some information missing that we would need to determine how many pages the book in the middle has. Okay, so we don't have information to be. We are now at the end of the paper. Okay, so it says examine the mathematical sentence below. There are 5 shapes. Each shape represents its own unique number. Use the information to answer item 40. All right, so let's say a sun and the lightning bolt and maybe like a diamond for that shape. All right, and then we have the arrow. Okay, so they want us to find out which one of these statements would be true. Okay, so, all right. If I was to try to work these out, which I don't necessarily think we need to work it out, but just in case, what plus what equals 4? It would be safe to assume that this is 2 and this is 2. Right? So 2 plus 2 is 4. But let's look at this one too. Since we know that this is 2, 15 minus something gives you 2. What is 15 minus? That would be 13. Okay, so that's 13. But do we really need to do all of this? Not necessarily. Okay, and so of course this is also going to be 13. So wherever we have this simple, we know it's going to be 13. I don't even know if we need that information. I'm just doing it just to see. Because of course, when you have an exam like this, you have to try different things. So this is possibly one of the things that you could have tried to see if you could come up with the answer. So of course, we know that these two will be the same. When you subtract this, you will have to have an even number and then divide that even number by 2 to get this. But we don't need to do. Based on what I'm seeing, this will not necessarily give us the answer in this way. It's possible we could still work it out to find the answer, but it would be a guess. But since we're not looking at numbers here, they're not telling us of a particular number or they need a particular number. We need to know what would be correct. So I'm going to get rid of these numbers. You don't need them, but I'm just showing you that when you have your questions, you can look at different options because you're not sure sometimes which way to go. So we're concerned about this line in particular and this line, okay? So if these 3 things give you this over here, which would be like the diamond, I'm going to say diamond, right? Or more like a star. Not a star either, because star has 5 points, but I'm just saying, just to give the shape a name, right? So this diamond, right? When we add the 2 suns and the lightning bolt, it give us this diamond over here, right? So if the diamond is the total and we subtract the lightning bolt, then we should be left with these 2 stars, or suns, if you want to call them suns. So we would, again, these 2 would be equal to this. So if you subtract the lightning bolt and it's from the diamond and it gives you this shape over here, it means that these 2, this and this, would also be equal to this, right? Because if you subtract them from this, you end up with this. If you subtract this one, you end up with those 2. So I'm going to say A is the correct answer, right? When these 2 would give you this. So let's see if I can do it in a different way. Let's see if I can do it in a different way for you to get or to see what the answer is. This is the last question. So once this question is finished, guys, please remember to subscribe, share with a friend, Okay. All right, so let's go now. So if we minus equal to this, if we minus the lightning bolt, right? And we minus the lightning bolt, right? Then we would end up with the two star thingies, right? And in the same way, here at the bottom, if we subtract the lightning bolt from the diamond, we end up with this. So that means that this has the same value as these two. So that's why the answer is A. So there you have it, guys, at the end of the paper. Somewhat challenging in terms of a few of the questions. You have to really think deep and be able to look at patterns and see relationship between different things, but still manageable. So just hope that you are able to apply some of what we've done here to your exams coming up if you have not yet done the exams and you're viewing this. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, as I stated before. And as I usually say, I will see you in the next video.